On September 26, 1983, the world came closer to nuclear war than it ever has before or ever since. Not because of a political decision, not because of a missile launch, but because of sunlight, reflecting off clouds at the wrong angle. And because one man, a Soviet lieutenant colonel who wasn't even supposed to be working that night, decided to trust himself over the machine. His name was Stanislav Petrov. The world of September 1983 was not a stable place, to say the least. Just 3 weeks before that night, Soviet fighter jets had destroyed Korean Airlines Flight 007 after it drifted into Soviet airspace. Ronald Reagan had called it a crime against humanity, and meant it. NATO was running a military exercise called Able Archer 83, a simulation of a nuclear strike so realistic that Soviet intelligence had begun to believe it might not be a simulation at all. Yuri Andropov, the Soviet General Secretary, was dying, conducting foreign policy from his hospital bed. The men around him were hardened Cold Warriors who had spent their entire careers waiting for the Americans to strike first. This was the atmosphere. This was the pressure inside every military installation in the autumn of 1983. Not paranoia, in the casual sense, but the clinical, structural conviction that a nuclear first strike from the United States was not a question of if, but when. Into that atmosphere, on a Tuesday night, Stanislav Petrov arrived at work. He was not supposed to be there. He was covering for a colleague, a routine substitution, the kind that happens in every military, every day. Except on that night. The Serpikov 15 bunker sits approximately 100 kilometers south of Moscow. It is a concrete room filled with screens and men whose entire purpose is to stare at those screens and wait for the worst moment in human history. At 12:14 Moscow time, just past midnight, an alarm sounded. One missile detected, inbound from United States. In Soviet nuclear doctrine, one missile makes no sense. A first strike would be massive, hundreds of warheads simultaneously. One missile was just noise, a ghost signal, a malfunction. Petrov thought, malfunction. And the alarm changed. 2, 3, 4, 5. The system confidence level shifted to its highest rating. This was not a ghost signal. The Oko early warning satellite was telling him, 5 American nuclear missiles are in the air. They are coming here, and you have 14 minutes. His hand went to the phone. The phone that connected directly to his superiors. The phone that, if he picked it up and reported a confirmed launch, would begin a chain of events that could not be undone. Protocol said, report it. Every drill ever said, report it. Every superior officer in his chain of command said, report it. He didn't report it. He looked at the screen. He looked at the phone. He thought about the ground-based radar stations. The arrays that should by now have been tracking 5 inbound warheads through the atmosphere. They were showing nothing. He thought about the logic. 5 missiles. If the Americans wanted to start a nuclear war, why just 5? Why not 500? He thought about the Oko system itself, new and imperfect. Rushed into service because the Soviet military needed it before it was truly ready. He had heard the engineers talk about its weaknesses: sunlight, cloud cover, specific angles of reflection that could fool the sensors. He thought about all of this in less than 60 seconds. And then Stanislav Petrov picked up the phone. He reported a system malfunction, not a launch. Just a malfunction. It was indeed a malfunction. Sunlight reflecting off high-altitude clouds at a precise angle, hitting the Oko satellite sensors in a way that the engineers had not fully anticipated. The United States had fired nothing. The world was not coming to an end. In the 90 seconds that followed his report, the silence in the bunker was not relief. It was the specific, physical stillness of men who had just stood at the edge of something and stepped back without fully understanding how close they had been. Stanislav Petrov was not given a medal. Instead, he was reprimanded formally in writing for failing to maintain a proper logbook during the incident. The Soviet military could not acknowledge what he had done without also acknowledging that their flagship early warning system had nearly initiated a nuclear exchange. So, they buried it, transferred him. Eventually, he retired quietly to a small apartment in Fryazevo, a satellite town outside Moscow. He died on May 19, 27, and he was 77 years old. The world learned his name almost by an accident. A researcher uncovered the declassified incident report years later. Petrov gave a few interviews here and there. He accepted a small award from a German foundation. He said on more than one occasion that he did not think of himself to be a hero. He said he had simply done his job. On September 26, 1983, one man's decision not to act may have saved the world. Subscribe to Pivot Point History today.